So, hello everybody to another episode of the FI Europe podcast. Today we are also recording the episode. We are not sure if we publish it afterwards, but put some pressure on us to post it and ask for it. And today it was me in the studio, in my new home studio. I have online Dima. And hi, Dima. Say hi to the audience.
Hi, I'm Dina.
And you've been introduced to me by Tim. That we had Tim in, I think, in May in the podcast, and he was a colleague of you in, I think, Shell, this oil company, where the stock doesn't look very good at all currently.
Very true.
And and he also said a lot of good things about you, that you're also an entrepreneur, and that's why I thought it's worth reaching out. And the topic today I would like to talk with you is about a lifestyle business, how to build a business that is maybe not a new bank, but a nice lifestyle business, and how you did it, and so on. And maybe you would like to introduce yourself a little bit, tell us something about your background and so on.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Mathias. I really like your new studio. I think you put a lot of effort into that nice design. I like the hype in the background. So it's good for you. I'm here in my office as well. And I think we all did some 2020 upgrades to make everything a little prettier. So it's great to be here. So I'm Dina. I'm German American, and I now live in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. Been here for the last 2.5 years in close to Zurich. Mm-hmm. And before that, I lived in the Netherlands, where, as you mentioned, I used to work for Shell with Tim. Mm-hmm. I'm originally an engineer. So I studied environmental engineering in London, and then I started working as a petroleum engineer for Shell. That work was on gas platforms in the North Sea. And then I moved to Iraq, and I worked in the oil field there. And then with the last oil crisis in 2016, things changed a little, and I decided to leave the industry and do something else. And that was probably the first point where I dove into entrepreneurialism for the first time in a serious capacity. Actually, I tried to build up a little startup back then, really having no clue at all about anything. Mm-hmm. It was also kind of a deep dive into the way the world had changed digitally. Despite being an engineer, we don't all know how to code and program and are aware of this very, very fast-moving world that we're in. And I spent some time exploring new things, traveled for a while, took a sabbatical, and then I moved to Switzerland. Here I worked in venture capital first. Mm-hmm. So I worked for 2 VCs in Zurich, and then for about a year. And then after that, I worked for a small Swiss software company. And now I'm in the food business. It's kind of one of these really great chances that life sometimes offers you, where, you have a little passion for something, and you dare to take it a little bit further and a little bit further. And then before you know it, you actually take the leap and found a company and hope for the best. So we launched 2 months ago, and
You launched two months ago. It's also, so to recap, you came from the US to the UK, and then to
Germany. Finished school
to Germany, finished going to Germany, then to the UK, and then to Switzerland, and now you're still in Switzerland.
And to the Netherlands and Switzerland. Yeah, I hop around a lot. I like to different countries.
Yeah, and obviously also Iraq and so on. So it's complicated.
It's complicated, yeah.
I would put it, but a lot of experience and a lot of influence also from many cultures that can also help you to understand different audiences and target groups. And so now you're kind of engineer or also software-minded person in the food business. I'm curious what this can bring to the food business, because usually in the food business there are no technicians, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the story of how this whole thing started. Okay, so basically a year and a half ago, we actually went to Portugal, and we actually visited Tim. So that's me and my partner Murat. And we went to Portugal actually because a couple months before that, after I left my last VC role, I started taking kind of a financial independence a little bit more seriously. I started learning more about it. I think this is because I'm the type of person who has always had a very clear idea of what she wants and where to go, but I've not necessarily always done the things in the way that I would have even recommended to other people. So I think, like, reflecting back on my time in the corporate world, at the time where I had a permanent contract, had a very, very strong stability that a corporate world offers you. And even the time when I was an expat and I was earning a lot of money, I didn't really even know what to do with this money in a responsible way. I was 25, I wanted to have fun, and I did have fun, and I spent the money in the way that I wanted to. But, I think maturing a little, going on 30, I started thinking about, okay, like, if I have 10,000 euros, what would I actually do with that now? And, instead of buying the next Gucci bag. And, how to actually act on and dare to act on, investing and on taking that next step to use money in a responsible way to fulfill the goals that you actually have. So we actually went to Portugal to look at a couple of properties because Tim obviously is very interested in the property in business and has made several steps in that already. So we spent a week there and looked at a bunch of, low price properties, things that are, under 100,000 with very much the intention of getting something to let out, short-term rentals, long-term rentals. And I really started digging into what are the tax implications, what are the profit margins, what's your return on an investment, and really this type of, you have to train yourself in this type of thinking, right? It doesn't come naturally. I became very aware of that. I had zero financial education, really zero. I'm highly educated, and objectively speaking, zero financial education.
It's not taught, And I think you also, from my point of view, you also have to look at many properties, and then you try the first one, and then maybe you fail because then you recognize, oh, it's too expensive. Then you try a short-term rental, then you recognize, oh, it doesn't fit to my lifestyle, and then you have to shooting many times, and then finally you just hit something, and then you find a property.
But I think for me, the biggest thing was really just getting out there and trying something for things. And we found a really cute little property. I had this whole little vision of this thing, and we actually made an offer, and the offer was accepted, and then the deal fell through for other reasons. And 10 months later, COVID hit, and short-term rental businesses collapsed. So things happen for a reason in strange ways. But while we were in Portugal, I discovered a couple of interesting local products, and one of them was a very intense chili oil. And I adore spicy food, so I just asked for a chili oil at a restaurant because we had some bread and oils, and I loved it. I just absolutely it was a mind-blowing experience to me that you could have a chili oil that was this intense. And I took a couple bottles back with me for myself and my housemates. I live in a house of 10. So that's a little bit of a special setup here in Switzerland. And basically we were all in paradise for about 6 weeks until the bottles were empty. And then I tried to find more of this really, this intense chili oil, and I couldn't get my hands on it. It was they had the product in Portugal, and I found somebody who was importing it to the UK and was selling it for 40 times the price. And I'm okay, you know what? I really like to cook. I like to experiment. I'm going to try and fuse my own oils. So then I started experimenting with fusing chili oils, and I fused in other types of flavors like garlic and lemon and ginger and bay leaf and paprika. And I went through probably 40 different variations. And I had a very lovely test group living with so many people. So we actually came up with this little bottle of chili oil. Do I have it? Oh, no, get it for a second. And we put it into these little dropper bottles. So you could really kind of dose it on your food. You really, really only need 2 drops to make your dish not only spicy, but really fragrantly spicy.
That's a nice packaging for chili, because sometimes you put too much on your food. And
you know what my problem was? My problem was that I love spicy food, but cooking with spice, making food spicy when I cook myself is fine. But when I cook for other people, you never know what the spiciness levels of everybody preferences are, right? And personally, I've never found a love for sauces like Tabasco and stuff. I don't really like these acid-based sauces. And then you get into the world of just buying chilies and you never know what you get. Like sometimes it's super overwhelmingly spicy and sometimes it's like a paprika and you're super underwhelmed. And so this was like really mind-blowing to me because like I could finally make anything I wanted spicy. And, this fits with every type of cuisine. I can put it on my pasta, I can put it on my taco, like it's not this overwhelming but like sauce that takes over the flavor. It really kind of like contributes to the flavor and just gives us this extra kick. So we were all like super crazy about this. And then Murat, my partner, started calling it chili, chili, boom, boom. That's the name we went for. And then it was like Christmas time. And we were like, you know what? It's very interesting that this product doesn't exist anywhere. Back then I was traveling a lot. Like I checked the supermarkets, like across all these, like at least 5 European countries that I was in. And it just didn't exist. And I'm like, okay.
I can't imagine that this not exists. I mean, I've seen some...
Yeah, chili oil. Chili oil is nothing new, right?
Chili oil, and there's some...
oils for pizza and stuff. But these highly intensive, like flavor-fused chili oils are, like, as I said, Portugal has got them. But I mean, my flavor profile is completely different than the oils that I tried. But they're the only ones who have figured this out. It's actually a very old recipe because I found basically like 28 mentions or so of this oil online.
And you don't want to share the recipe with us because it's like Coca-Cola and it's a super secret.
You know what? When it comes to food, you have to have a certain amount of transparency because you have to put your ingredients on the bottle, right? So. When it comes to, obviously, you don't have to declare your exact method and recipe and so forth, but you have to accept the fact that somebody is going to be able to copy you. Like that's just the way it is. So your value is not only in your product, it's in your product innovation and it's in your brand. And beyond that, you have to accept that it's out there. And it's like, even if you try and patent yours, you can tweak one little thing on something else and somebody else can do it. So trying to be too protective of your products in the food business, I don't think is worthwhile of time. But
it's also in other industries. For example, in Zoom, we currently use Zoom to record today, and they also don't have a moat, or they cannot protect because they have really good competitors with a lot of money like Microsoft and Google, and the way they can get traction is to ship new features faster, to be more customer oriented and having a nice brand, a nice story behind it.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why we also have the Zoom experience, and that's also in other industries you have kind of the same. And what I'm curious about is when did you why you founded the company? Because first of all, you still have the property? Yes, no answer?
So no, that deal fell through. We never got that.
Okay, so you don't have the property, but you moved on to something you really like this food company or lifestyle business, I would say. And when actually you had the idea you can make a business out of it?
Well, what we did is when we came up, like we were using Chili Chili Boom Boom in our house, and it became this thing that I took with me everywhere. And I started telling people about it. Like I think that year, so this is 2019. I said I was going through a lot of kind of personal development in a kind of greater sense than before. And I was listening to a lot of Gary Vaynerchuk as well. I really dug deep into his content, and I mean, he has huge amounts of content and like the spirit that he does business with.
What was the name again?
Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary V.
Gary V. Okay, say Gary V, then I know who is it.
Yeah, Gary Vaynerchuk is his full name. Yeah, Gary V. So I mean, his spirit is just, he's a very purpose-driven form of doing business, and he's probably the best person currently living who understands the power of digital media and the power of using digital media for business in the right way. And he's very proponent. He proposes to really share everything. So I really tried to kind of jump over my shadow and start sharing. And not only, I started sharing with my friends, and I started saying like I discovered this, and then we kind of decided to like do a little. It was Christmas time, do a little Christmas campaign. So we ended up sending out like 150 bottles of this, and we actually had these cute little bottles that are even smaller than this, and sent it to friends and family and kind of everybody who kind of came along our way. it was a time of sharing. It's Christmas anyway. Personally, I wish somebody had sent me a bottle of this stuff 5 years ago already. So I really felt like anybody who adores spicy food would just like to experience this. And obviously, it also had like a little bit of a purpose for us to understand, do other people like this? It was a kind of a little market study in a fun
kind
way.
of validation of your prototype. Basically.
Yeah, and then we learned a lot of things. We learned that everybody's taste is very, very different. And everybody perceives flavors in very different ways. Like some people are extremely sensitive to ginger, for example, and we taste the ginger out in a very, very, very strong way that it was overwhelming to them. So it helped us to fine tune the recipe and so forth, and to really get an understanding of, is this something that people would enjoy? And so then, like after that campaign, the beginning of this year, 2020, we were like, you know what? Let's figure it out. How the heck do you actually produce a food product on a professional scale and launch this type of a product, right? Because food is very regulated, right? You need to know like which markets you're in. You need to have it safe, right? Like the last thing you want to do is cause anybody any harm to your product. And so then I just kind of, Google is your best friend. Started searching for like, how the heck can we pull this off? And found out that the world of food is very much governed by, the companies that produce their own products and the companies that work with other companies to produce their products. And with that, you have companies that really manufacture your products, but you also have companies that take your manufactured product and just bottle them and label them and ship them and so forth. So this is the world of co-manufacturing and co-packing and so forth. And so I started just calling everybody, like everybody could find. And what really helped was that I do speak German, and that Germany is such a huge manufacturing hub. And we ended up finding the most valuable contacts in Germany. And, maybe if I searched in French or in Spanish, I would have found similar things there. But, being in this part of Europe, Germany, sitting between the Netherlands and, because Murd is based in the Netherlands and Switzerland, it was very convenient. And, through various searches, I've got in touch with this very small organic oil mill in Germany. And they were willing to kind of try it out with me, to be like, to take my recipe and to see whether we can scale it. Because like one of the biggest constraints was actually the size of this bottle. Like we wanted to, like the perception of this dropper bottle was very positive. People really like this, but this is as a 1 centimeter opening. So it's like not all machinery can handle filling these types of bottles, for example. And then closing the bottles is also a process that the machine needs to be built for. And so this company actually had been experimenting with CBD oil. So they had the infrastructure and they were an oil mill. So they produced their own oils. And so, this is a very small German company and we kind of just went for it. And then you kind of get into dealing with these other small businesses, right? And they actually, they made a couple of executive decisions regarding my recipe and method that made a huge influence, made a big difference to the products and taste. And I visited them at the end of February, like right before Corona was really hitting, like when we were hearing like
good timing,
things going on. It was a carnival time, if you remember. And we kind of concluded that the recipe that I have at home and was making at home is not really scalable for a larger production. And so we wanted to experiment with natural extracts. And then that's a whole different world again, right? You have extracts, like extracts are made from the origin product with different types of solvents. You can use an alcohol, you can use an ethanol, you can use all sorts of things. Or you can use a method called CO2 extraction, which then preserves the essential oils from the original product to the largest extent. It doesn't use a solvent, which is an issue for people who eat halal, for example. They don't want to have anything where alcohol was involved. And then this is really this is where you enter like the sciencey part of food.
Yes, because, I can imagine.
Your experience of flavor is like a mix of the actual experience on your tongue, the way that the molecules kind of evaporate in your mouth, the smells that you have on it. So you have concentrates, you have extracts, you have essential oils, and like the different methods of making them all make a huge difference. And so just taking kind of, the compounds like the lemon and the garlic and the chili and just putting it all together did not create the same experience whatsoever. And we went through like several dozen variations and I didn't like the outcome of any of them actually. And then Corona really hit. And then like in mid-March, they told us that we had to put everything on ice because they couldn't cope with the situation right now, and like doing this kind of like an extra product on the side. They had to focus on their core business. But in the meantime, I had been experimenting with other products already, and I started fusing the same flavors from this oil into fleur de sels, because I love fleur de sel de Camargue, and I sprinkled it on everything I ate. And then I really, really enjoyed what I've been creating with these fleur de sels. Like, because the fleur de sel kind of takes out the depth of the flavor of your natural food already, and kind of adds this like little extra crunchiness. And then I started making different flavors. And then when lockdown really hit, I sent my partner in Amsterdam, because we were separated for 7 weeks over the lockdown. I sent him a care package. And I had been playing at like 3 flavors of these fleur de sels then that I was using on my food. And he can't tolerate spicy food at all. So I've made the same flavors, and one new flavor for him that was non-spicy. So that's how we kind of came up with like these first non-spicy flaky salts. And then I got put in touch with this really small organic spice mill in Germany. And they then, had a couple of other types of flaky salts, and I did some like further searching, and then I discovered this flaky salt from Australia. And this flaky salt kind of just like blew my mind, because these crystals were so incredibly thin and like so crispy that it wasn't this kind of like salty, overwhelming experience. It was really this like extra crunch and punch from the flavors, and then, my spiciness or even the non-spiciness. And I was like, wow. And then we were cooking like crazy over lockdown, like obviously, like it was no other way to
like everybody,
right? And like I was locked up with 9 other people, right? Like we were in this house in Switzerland, and we cooked a lot, like a lot, and it was really fun because I had a test group with me the whole time to really like go through, because we went through dozens of different recipes for each one of our.
And you could see the reaction of them and ask questions and so on.
And it's really important to have like different perspectives as well, because everyone's flavor profile is so different. And then when lockdown ended, we were kind of like, okay, like let's actually try this. And so we incorporated a company. It was a big consideration whether we should incorporate here in Switzerland or incorporate in the Netherlands. And I mean, it has all sorts of, especially tax consequences, benefits, and
more consequences than benefits, basically.
And and then that was the start, and that's how Smiqql was born. And
that's the name.
And we really went deep into like really how do you actually put this like idea of these flaky salts that we have into the world.
And now people can order it and can go to the website and check it out and so on. And how do you market it? And do you have any mentors, or is it just kind of obsession that you go to the internet and researching new providers and new house producers and so on? It's just reaching out and nothing else. So no mentor, for example.
We don't have a mentor. Well, we do have I'm a big fan of doing my own research, right? I've always wanted to know everything I know and everything I don't know before I dive into
So you kind of adopted some hacker mindset.
Yeah, but I'm also not scared to reach out to other people and ask for help. And sometimes, you'll never get a response. And sometimes you'll get a no. And sometimes people will be willing to help you. And sometimes it takes 3 months for somebody to get back to you. And then they'll still be there. Because just having an idea for a product is just the beginning, right? Yeah. Like we had a great connection to established company who knew what they were doing in terms of helping us to produce the product. But for me is very, very important is the experience that the product is used in. So for us, it was not only about having a quality product, it was very much about how are we going to put this together to make the entire experience the most joyful and the most kind of intentional in the ways that we enjoy the product and share that with the world. And so the first step for us, we kind of came up with this idea of curating these collections of different flavors first, right? So we would have a collection of spicy flavors and a collection of non-spicy flavors. And we realized that, we had these small little test bottles that I kept sending out samples to everybody as well. And I really loved these little bottles and the sprinkling experience directly onto food. That you didn't need a spoon, that you didn't put in your hands. Because most of the spice kind of products that you'll have like these bigger tubs and you need to dig in with your hands and it's really gross and you have it on your hands and the product itself becomes contaminated. It's really terrible for sharing, like let alone Corona considerations.
How can you use the bottle when it's salt? I understood that it's salt.
Here. So
is it liquid? Is it still liquid?
So this is how the product looks now. This is
okay. Yeah, I've seen that on LinkedIn.
Yeah. These were our test bottles. Yeah. So they're like your kind of like pharmacy bottles. I got these all from like suppliers for like pharmacy goods and stuff. And then this was the great experience of understanding like, okay, sprinkling it directly on, understanding how much of the product comes out, how much do you need. I really enjoyed this versus like a bigger tub where you kind of have to involve a separate medium to
and I think that's one of your unique selling points is the packaging, that it's small, that you can have it in your bag. When you go to the restaurant, you can just or from in the canteen in the companies that you can just add a little bit of flavor and you don't have to have some big box of flavors. And
I think our packaging and kind of packaging and product experience strategy it's a pretty nice example of a product innovation. Like we're not doing anything new in the sense of like spices exist, salt exists, like people who like to cook have liked to cook. But what we are doing is we're offering a different experience of the whole thing. So like these are our sets. Yeah. We've made sure that the packaging is designed in a way that tries to spark joy, right? Like we've tried to bridge like a mix of like playful, colorful, and elegant elements together that it conveys this feeling of luxury, of having something special, but also of still being connected to the product and not feeling afraid to never ever use it, right? Yeah. And like, so we've curated it into a set of 4, and we really are trying to introduce this feeling of like playing with your food and playing with your flavors and like increasing the experience of your meals and the joy of your meals. And, it's how do you take something that's boring and make it better? Or how do you like cook something with the intention of sprinkling this on afterwards? And I think this is really something special that we've done that other companies don't really offer in Europe. And I think that when it comes to spices, it's still a very conventional world out there. And I think that's what I see a lot in this food. This entire journey of food and like these huge amount of new companies coming up, small businesses to these startups that are really looking for funding and trying to scale very quickly. There's something happening right now in food, and it's really exciting. Like you have these different branches, like vegan food is incredible what's happening right now, but also like generally speaking, there are better products coming out. And the reason why, if you ask me, is because it's possible for the first time, because someone like me with zero experience and zero industry experience, zero educational experience was able to do the research and connect with the right people to bring this out, to understand how do you launch a product, how do you do the branding and the design, how do you order packaging at scale, how do you write your hygiene plans, and so on and so forth.
Because the things you need to build this are the kind of democratized, so that you have kind of companies that help you with the production, that you can do the marketing yourself, or how, for example, if you had to do it 20 years ago, what would have been more difficult?
So I think 20 years ago, like what I continuously noticed, despite there being so much more information out there than ever before, is that there's a lot of key information that's hidden behind industry doors. So even when dealing with food authorities, like the Swiss food authorities had a very different approach than the Dutch food authorities towards helping us. The Dutch food authorities did not want to help us at all. They literally told us, and I quote, go find yourself a food consultant that you can do on the internet using a browser. Like this email, like I'll never forget it. Like, like they don't even want to answer a simple question. And it's because food is very, very specialized to the product that you're making. So, I can generally tell you how to launch a food product, but how to launch your specific food product will require the deeper digging of that. So you can contact food consultants who can help you to launch it. Right. And they will help you connect with the right co-packers or co-manufacturers to make it into reality. You'll require a lot of capital though to do that, because the volumes that you need to have these things make sense are high. So that was a huge consideration for us too. Like we originally wanted to produce 1,000 sets and kind of launch it out to the world. And then it turned out 1,000 sets was not going to make sense on a unit cost with the packaging and the labels and so forth. So it's a very individual journey for all. I do think that, like, we needed probably 6 to 8 months to figure out how to really do this. And I think that time can be shortened if you bring in some more expert help or if you have some additional support. But I don't think democratize is the right word to use. I think
it's still hard, you would say.
Like, these are the clear signs of that disruption is happening when you're guarding knowledge and insight. And that's why we see so many cool things happening in food right now.
It's true. So I have what I have seen, for example, is that there is made of insects these bars that you can eat. So you have your protein, and also you have all these new food markets that have really delicious food. And in earlier times, you had just a Christmas market, and they had some sausages and some bread, and that's it. And what I've seen in the supermarket in the spice department, I would say, is that you can get the usual pepper and garlic and so on, but you also have kind of mixed. You have mixed spices, and I was just thinking about, okay, they have French fries salt, so they have some tomato and some herbs in it and salt, but they have a much higher margin than you would just buy the 3 components separately. So I was just thinking, okay, then I buy the 3 components, and I don't have to pay the euro more. But obviously, for French fries, salted might work, but not for other things.
I think that's nothing new. I think that everybody thinks that you can do something yourself and don't need to spend an extra on a margin of a product that's already ready. And it comes down to, why do you buy a product in the first place, right? Like, why do you buy a bag that costs 10 times as much as the value of the actual bag is, right? You buy it for the brand, and you buy it for the experience of that, and you buy it also for the convenience of what it is.
And so distinction from other people.
When it comes to food, like, there are a lot of products you can make yourself, right? Like making ricotta, for example, it takes 20 minutes. Right, but nobody's making ricotta as much as they buy ricotta, because the convenience of the product being ready, and it's also the consistency of the product being what it is, and knowing what you have. So I think when it comes to food, what's happening right now is that these new products, the insect bars that you're describing, or these food markets, they're bringing some fun into it and something new and exciting into this market, where we've been accustomed to having the same brands producing the same products. And, like, none of us eat like our grandparents ate anymore. Like, I'm sure you grew up, I had a German grandmother, and she did the same 12 meals on repeat every day, right? And do I adore her food? Of course I do. But nowadays I also want to have sushi, and I want to have a pad thai, and, I want to
Your grandmother is not making you some sushi? My is neither.
I don't think she ever tried sushi, to be honest. Like, she's no longer with us now, but I don't think she would have gotten close to that.
So grandparents they're just trying to make new meals and experiment if they need it for health reasons. For example, my grandmother, they did more fish and used more oil instead of animal fat, because the doctor said she should try it, and then she tried it. But in the end, they're not ready to experiment. And I'm also tempted in the supermarket. You have a lot of new foods, and they have really nice brands and nice typography. And I'm always tempted to collect one of these items that are kind of expensive. And sometimes I do, because I'm just a human. And my co-host Alba would not, but I'm kind of doing it sometimes, and it's really nice. And it makes also life more, you have more experiences, more better to live, I would say. It's more colors to life.
And not everybody cares about it. Some people really don't think twice about food, and they really see it as, a need for survival. And other people curate their vacations and their entire free time around the food experiences that they want to have.
And you have the hashtag food porn also on Instagram. So there are people who care. And it makes there's also coffee porn, the hashtag, if you want to have a new coffee brand. I think it's pretty feasible to, for example, create your own coffee brand and your own lemonade. I also have a friend, and many say hi to Sebastian, who is trying to or he built a brand for animal food. So he bought a real big, filled the house, the whole basement with food. And then he repackaged and branded a new food for cats. And it's an awesome brand. It looks like a 80s superhero for cats. And pretty good. But now the hard facts. How many capital have you been burned to build this up right now?
I think besides our living expenses, we've poured in about 25,000 euros to make this happen.
Mm-hmm. And you also need some time to do it, isn't it? Yeah. Because I understood you have been expert, then you had some personal development gap year, I would say, and but don't you have some fear? Don't you have to get a job, or is it already paying off so much? You have so many customers that you can live from it, or is there any? How can you live? Because I'm in a normal day job, and because I need some food for my family and so on.
Yeah. So we have an angel investor who's covering kind of our living expenses so that we can survive and push us through. And we have about 18 months runway on that. So we have the way that we've designed this product is we have no intentions of becoming a venture capital funded startup. I've worked in this industry. I have many friends who've pursued that avenue. It's a different type of business strategy to pursue than wanting to curate a small, profitable business. So, our intentions are very much we're over quality over quantity. And, our products are not cheap either. We're not interested in the mass market. Like I don't want to see my products at Lidl, for example, because that's not the type of customer who truly enjoys and appreciates this type of a product. I don't want to call it a foodie product, but it is a type of product where you need an appreciation for the experience that it creates. If you're just interested in salt, then you can spend 50 cents on salt, right?
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to recuperate the investment that we've put in. And our goal is, over the Christmas season, we purposely designed our little sets as, potential gift sets as well, because they look very, very cute and pretty, and you're supposed to put a smile on someone's face. So we're hoping that we can have a really great festive season in the best creative way we can, because COVID is very challenging to actually bring it to customers. But and then after that, we'd like to take the recuperated investment and put it into our next products. And this is the way that we'd gradually like to grow. And at the end of the day, we'll make it or we won't make it. But it's been a journey of joy. And if the last kind of 10 years of my career have taught me anything, is that you'll have success in things, you'll have not success in things. There are external factors that come in between that will completely ruin your perfect game plan. Yeah. And we've all experienced that this year. Like anybody's 5-year plan in 2020 was destroyed.
Yeah, you have to adapt very fast. There will
always be a solution to follow the next path and take the learnings from along the way. So,
and have you thought about distributors? I think for what's the English word for fine cost? Fine cost?
Like a delicatessen gourmet.
Delicatessen, and have you reached out to them that they can resell your products? Because I have some in my mind, and I think it could help you to kind of scale. But do you really want to scale? Because I think there's potential to scale in this delicatessen market. And
I mean, it's an interesting conversation, this whole direct-to-consumer business that we have, right? Like, if you look at it objectively, we're set up for perfection for Corona days, right? Because we sell directly to our customers. We are heavily dependent on our logistics providers, right? And that's a whole different discussion of its own. Yeah. But we've set up in a way that we are able to distribute within Switzerland, from Switzerland, and within the EU and worldwide from the Netherlands. There are a lot of logistical challenges in this, and only distributing from and selling directly means that all the efforts of the marketing and reaching customers has to come from us. So partnering with other resellers helps with increasing that reach. right? You do have to consider that they, of course, will want to take a slice of your success, which is fine as long as they're also pushing your success and working on the same values as you. So we've had several conversations with resellers over the last 2 months since we've launched. Right, we're still pretty young, and it's been an interesting journey. Like, there are a lot of resellers that are working very old school, I'd call it, right? And the whole kind of business of distributors is also a very old, this middleman business. It's very old, and like, there are supermarkets that will only want to speak with a distributor, for example, instead of speaking directly. And to be honest, it's not my primary focus. I'm very happy to work with other like-minded businesses, and I'm particularly interested in these smaller, purpose-driven online supermarkets that are out there. And it's not my primary goal to be put on Rewe, where you're talking about, for example, tomorrow, because, like, for various reasons, and I think that that's a good step to also consider once you've reached a certain size, and once we have a certain base demand that is measurable, because you go into it's a big responsibility as well to sell to these supermarkets, and many of them wouldn't even take our products because they are not made by machines, right? And there are all sorts of certifications and additional kind of levels that you do require to sell to many of these supermarkets, and it's a strategy. Like, as I said, I think that we are not looking for, becoming, going from 0 to 100 overnight. We really want to build an organic, sustainable business here. And that's really the key word for me, sustainable.
So not like Beyond Meat, which I think they partnered right in the beginning with, I think, McDonald's, or also have Walmart as a customer, and they really try to scale really fast. And they, just in summer, they started with their own website with direct to customer, and to get independent from these distributors. And so you do it just the other way around, that you start first with your online.
There's a completely different business model, right? Like, first of all, they have a science foundation of their product innovation, right? Like, there are many types of Beyond Meats out there now, but they have a very, there was a lot of R&D required to get to the point that they even had a product that could be sold. And then I think they did a very, very smart thing with, finding these distribution points to bring this product out, this very, very new product, right? Like a very controversially new product out to the masses. But I mean, they have taken in hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital funding to be able to pull this off, right? And then they IPO'd quite early, and that's been a fun trading game to play as well, if you've been on board of that one. But they have a completely different vision of that, and a very different type of product as well to do. And it's I don't think that type of product could have been launched out to the world and done profitably within a foreseeable time, the type of strategy that we're pursuing, because there was a huge amount of R&D that had to go behind that. And
you need a lot more capital, a lot more people, and so on. So it's maybe better to start small and then build from there.
Everybody's journey is different, and it's. I think that we absolutely could go out there and try and find investors and bring on a team of 20 people, and surely that would help in many ways. But you need to know who you get into bed with investors, and you also need to be willing to. You will, like, no matter how great your investors are, you're going to be giving up some of your freedom, right?
Yes.
You're going to be. You will not direct 100% of your way anymore, and investors will always seek to make a return on the money that they put in. So you're losing the freedom of directing your future with that too, of saying, like, I'm going to stay a small sustainable business to I need to eventually sell the company to make my investors happy.
And
that's it. It's not one about the other.
You mentioned that you have also worked with 2 venture capital companies in Switzerland, or worked for them. Has it helped to create the mindset for, or get ready for entrepreneurship, and for that, and also the context that they help you in building up the company?
I think Absolutely. I think spending so much time looking at startups and other businesses and getting to know entrepreneurs and so forth, and it helps tremendously to understand how to build a business, how to build a successful business, what types of business like strategies are good for you personally. Like how do you want to direct your day? Like how quickly do you want to grow? How dependent do you want to become? What are the industries that do very well? What are the industries that are continuously struggling? Like the first business that I wanted to found, for example, was a business in the sharing economy. This is, after I left my corporate career. And, I was 26 at the time, and I came up with this fantastic idea, which remains fantastic, which is that there are a ton of small businesses, whether it's a cafe or a gallery or a small store, that are not using their space 100% of the time, right? And during those 8 hours that the space is not used for anything at all, other people could find a good use for that, right? And it remains true to this day that is a fantastic, efficient idea. But the truth of the matter is, first of all, there are a lot of other consequences along the way. Like a business owner who closes their cafe at 2 p.m. Well, they also close at 2 p.m. and it's going to be closed then for 5 hours, 6 hours of afternoon time unused. But for the owner, for her to be worth it for her to rent that space out, like she has to consider that the space is not going to be damaged in any way, that, like nobody's going to get hurt within her space that she could be liable for. How do you even do the simple exchange of like opening and closing the spaces and the trust of the keys and so forth? So there's so many additional elements. And of course you can then be like, this is something for the blockchain. This is something in InsurTech, and you can bring this all in, and it remains a great idea, but you're like massively growing the scope of your small little cute idea, right? Yes. And then I was like, I'm just gonna put together a platform, and I'm gonna connect the supply and demand side, and I'm gonna be in the middle. Okay, that's also great. That's also a hugely efficient idea. This little principle behind the Airbnb and all these sharing economy companies. Yeah. But then actually being reasonable and considering, hey, you're building a digital platform. Once it's built, it's already outdated. So you need something, you have to continuously update this. You need a huge amount of customer support. And to be honest with yourself about the volumes that you need to actually, transact over this platform for it to be worth your while is also, it's needs to be high. It's a point that, your little like cute idea is difficult to get to that point as well. So this is, there are a lot of great ideas out there that are really, have a lot of benefits, and it's a win-win-win for everybody involved, but that doesn't necessarily make it into a smart business idea. I think that's something that we saw over and over and over again with startups looking for capital and from these VCs. That there are amazing ideas out there, but not all ideas, despite if they're amazing, sometimes a Facebook group can solve that problem. This is actually something that somebody told me when I first started out with the company that I called Spot a Spot. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm going to be big. I'm going to learn front-end programming in 3 months, and I'm going to do it all myself. And, I think, I think that's also come out there and learn it for yourself.
That's also the difference if you want to start a company and you kind of 20 or 24, or you kind of experience and have seen a lot of failure and how long it takes to become a developer, if you're like 35 and so on. And what do you think is the best advice you can give our audience now? Who I think they might have also learned something from your story and what not to do and what to do. But what do you think advice could you give them if they want to found a kind of lifestyle company?
I think the best advice is to not stay quiet. To recognize that no matter the kind of size of the audience that you might have, especially now, our audiences are primarily going to be online, right? They're going to be on our social media, whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or even your WhatsApp channels and so forth. Like, everybody has met hundreds and hundreds of people over their lifetime so far. And I think the best advice is really go tell as many people as you can about what you'd like to do, what you are doing, and hear what they have to say. And you don't have to necessarily take everything like change everything along the way with what every single person has told you. But I think, actually listening and thinking about and reflecting that is really very useful. And I think was something that really, really helped me throughout this entire journey was that not only did I share everything, I also tried to physically share this, right? So when you have a lifestyle business, as you call it, like we're talking about physical products here, right? So I can't send someone a link and be like, how do you like my flaky salts? Right? You can admire our designs and our branding maybe, but like it's a physical product. And like most things in lifestyle will enter the physical realm, right? So yeah, like we spend hundreds and hundreds of euros in sending out packages with our little chili oil bottles or our little flaky salt bottles, and not all of those translated into sales afterwards necessarily, but all of them translated into another data point for me to consider. Like if somebody did get it sent and they didn't tell me overwhelmingly that they loved it, what does that mean? And really be honest about like who your target customer is and how much of them are out there. Like I'm finding the entire journey of scaling this business online much more difficult than I expected, for example. And the conversion of getting somebody to be intrigued to actually buying is a very long process. Like, and this is because people are like, I like it, I'll buy it, and then they put it on their to-do list of their million things that they're considering. And like for them, if they purchase it now or in 3 months, they have purchased it eventually and they'll have thought about it. And it's like, oh yeah, I still wanted to do that. For a small business, it makes a huge difference if you're purchasing it now or in 3 months, right? Yes. And so I'm continuously trying to like evolve. Like the idea of like running ads, for example, I thought that would work like that. It does not work like that, right? Like at all. So I'm continuously looking for like additional opportunities to collaborate with other small businesses. I started working in a cafe now, and I cook there. It's like a healthy, vegan, vegetarian type of cafe. And, I'm collaborating with the business owner there. She opened in August as well. So, she's quite the woman to dare to do this during COVID too. And, we're working together to try and, make the most out of every opportunity we have along the way. Like anybody who wants to support you, like bring them on board. And sometimes things don't come out of it and sometimes do. But also, like, do not keep quiet.
I think you're right, because it's a physical thing, so you have to send it and you have to get feedback. And what also is some advice that I have also seen with a couple of friends, if you have some idea or if you want to pursue a different direction, you really need to get out and talk to people about it and take the phone. And then if you talk to somebody, and you can ask, do you have 2 other people I can talk to? And then you go across a social network and you get a lot of feedback, a lot of data points, as you say. And actually, I have also thought about in my calendar in the next 7 days, there are also 3 people who want to tell me about their idea. And I was thinking, hey, should I take the time? But yes, sure, I take the time, and we can brainstorm about their idea, and maybe I can help, maybe not. And I think you get, as you get faster feedback, you also know if you want to go forward with that idea or you want to try a different one. And it's also just nice to do something that you're passionate about and not just go for your job. If you found the job you're passionate about. But I think most people, it's just jobs, so they might go for a different direction. For example, my wife, she's very interested about this sustainable business, about also food. Maybe I also sent her a package of your salt. And that's why she's also connecting with a lot of different people in the food segment or zero waste and sustainable. And she found a lot of people who are also curious about it. And right now, in the next decade, I would say the food market and also the environmental aspect in our economy is fundamentally changing, and also you can earn a lot of money with it. For example, in Cologne, there's a startup called Vital, and they have these boxes. And if you go to a restaurant, you can get some reusable box, and you get your food, and then you can the box you can return in another coffee shop or restaurant, and that's kind of circular economy. And so you were thinking about how can they make money, but in the beginning, just maybe small fees for these boxes. But now all people are using the app, and they can also now you can order food using the app. So you see that this is also doing something for the environment can also help a lot. To make money.
Like it's about bringing value to people, and it's about bringing value to the people that you're trying to bring value to. Like we're not going to bring value with our flaky selves to everybody because not everybody values that, right? Not everybody values really great food. Like I'm somebody who always wants food to be like extra, right? Like if food is boring, it is not worth the calories for me to eat it, right? This is just my personal opinion. That doesn't mean that the rest of the world lives like that, right? And I think, connecting with the people that are on a similar journey of you. Like I'm a very purpose-driven person, and I was a very purpose-driven person in my corporate life as well, and in the types of jobs that I did, and the way that I did my jobs, and that succeeded for me in the corporate world. And the reason I left the corporate world was kind of acute at the time. Like it wasn't. I didn't grow tired of it and sick of it and burned out or anything. It was an external factor. Like many people this year probably also lost their jobs as an external factor because of Corona. And this will throw them onto a different path that they maybe always had in mind, but weren't necessarily ready to pursue yet. And I think, like you're going to fail. You're going to fail again and again. And I failed many, 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 many times. And I've done a lot of different things because of that. And for me personally, that really does suit me. And like, I don't value like external stability as high as other people, for example. Like I've friends who, despite being very unhappy in their jobs, could not dare to take 6 months off to think about what they want to do next because they they're very aware of themselves that the stability that a job offers them is more important to them, and they could not emotionally kind of deal with that step of not having that yet, right? Like that's something that for me does not mean much. It's never meant much for me for somebody to tell me that Shell has a great retirement plan. Like I don't even believe that Shell will be the company that it is when I joined in the year 2068 or whatever they said I was going to retire in. Like, how are we even going to be certain there will be a monetary system in the way that we understand it now in year 2068? So everybody's journey is different. Like I'm very grateful that I can wake up every day at the time that I want, in the place that I want, and do the things that I want. It's the backside of that is that you get as much as you put in, right? Like if I don't do something that day, then that something is gone. And so I really just try and take advantage of every opportunity that life comes about. And I think connecting and surrounding yourself with the right people is, and that sounds really stupid, but it really is as simple as go find the 5 Facebook groups that you care about, right? I'm in a couple of really cool Facebook groups, like a couple of cooking groups, a couple of women's groups, and I've been a member of them for 6 to 12 months. And there are awesome people in here. So just engage with these awesome women that are posting these stuff, for example, right? Like their content. Tell them when you think, like share your thoughts. I think that's something that a lot of people don't dare to do, like to share your thoughts and actually connect with people. Like,
it's very hard to share our own thoughts with because you're always thinking, what do people think about me? If you post your thoughts on LinkedIn, they maybe think that I'm stupid or I'm wrong, or you are afraid of the comments. You can. So what? You can just delete the comment if you want. And but I think how can people overcome? Especially in Germany, we have the system of being an employee and having a stable job and so on. How can people overcome this wish for more stability and not having fear? How is that possible to overcome that?
I don't think there's a one solution how to overcome that. I think that's a personal journey that everybody has to go on. And I don't think it's ever over. I don't think I could actually say that I'm totally like fearless of failing, right? But I can say that, I've been very financially comfortable and I've been broke many times, right? It's gone in cycles. And I think that after like the X time of having like lost it all and starting from zero again, and whether that's financially speaking, or you're speaking from like the career progress you thought you'd be on, or like in your family life and personal life, whatever it is, I think taking a step back and reflecting that, what are the things within my control? What are the things outside of my control? And really being honest of a lot of the things that you're believing the illusion of the control that you actually don't have. Right. And I think when it comes to things like retirement plans, it should be pretty brutally honest about whether this is really going to be in place for someone who's like 30 years old like me, and the way that you envision it. And think about the external factors that are going to play a role, and the plenty of stories that demonstrate the illusion of control and promise that that system actually does offer. And for some people, it still won't matter, right? And that's fine. That's fine. And then these are the people that need to accept that their best path is with a different company and is to be an employee. And then it's to strive towards that goal with that. I think a lot of people feel kind of a strong kind of, not fantasy, but kind of like a golden little world of what entrepreneurialism is. And, about what it means to have your own business and do your own thing and so on. And it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to do this yourself. To even if you're in a privileged position like myself of having somebody backing my journey, that I only have to a limited extent worry about where my rent is coming from, for the next 6 months, let's say, right? Like that is a privileged position, and I'm grateful for that privilege that I can enjoy, that I can focus on that, right? But there are, you have to admit to yourself that it is going to be hard. It's really, really hard. And you're never going to get as much back as you put in. And it was a lot easier for me to do 150% in my corporate job and continuously get the great feedback and the vacation days and that structure that the corporate world offers. Because I think that's the thing that a lot of entrepreneurs have to cope with as well. You have this very, very structured world in the corporate world. You come to work from a certain time to another certain time. It's very clear when you're working and when you're not working. And when you do it all yourself, that all becomes one.
Yes,
and we've all learned that a little bit this year with Corona bringing our work into our homes and understanding how everything really does become one. And there are plenty of benefits in that as well, right? You don't have to get up at 2 hours beforehand to get ready for an hour and commute for an hour, right? You can get up 15 minutes beforehand, make your coffee, and have your first call. That's a benefit, right?
That's a benefit.
But the consequence is also that you have to be in control of getting to bed on time so that you're not hungover in that call the next morning, right?
I have my kids for that. They just wake me. It's a natural clock. And I really like this post. I think the new normal, I would say, because you can also have a cup. If the weather is nice, you can go out with the kids for an hour. You have much more freedom, but obviously you also have to accomplish your things. So you have to maybe sit in the evening and also work a bit more. We have to finish it up. And I really like that you shared your thoughts with us. I think also there was a lot of advice and also inspiration for our audience. One of the questions we also ask always in the end is, for example, what is one resource not well known that you would recommend people on their path to financial independence or entrepreneurship? And you also mentioned that you had this gap year or this where you had personal development year. Maybe there's some source you liked or that helped you a lot that you can share.
I think one of the most recent things that helped me tremendously is digging into a couple of people who are very, very vocal about their journey, their thoughts, their purpose. And I think, I don't want to sound like a fangirl, but Gary Vaynerchuk is a fantastic resource for understanding the opportunities in the digital space that we're in.
And he has a wine business. He has a wine business, and you have a salt business. So there is some. To summarize his brief story, he's an immigrant, coming from an immigrant background. He built up his father's small liquor store into a digital first platform for selling wines in the 90s, in the 90s. We have to remember the state that the internet was in then. He took all these learnings, he wrote a couple of books, and he founded a media company, and is now really he's pushing this message. He's giving all his thoughts, his entire business strategy, he gives out there for free. And he talks to a lot of people who are either struggling on their path and have come across him and asked for advice, or people who have pursued their own paths. And I love it because it's a purpose-driven business strategy. It's about what are you doing? Are you happy? And if you're not, how are we going to get you there? And let's be honest with yourself about what really makes you personally happy. And once you've been honest with yourself about that, be honest with the work that it's going to take for you to fulfill the goals,
to sustain that or bring you to where you want to be. So I think like I'd absolutely recommend anybody who feels a little bit like explorational to discover that, to dig into any of his content, right? Like start with YouTube, start with his podcasts, and just consume him, like really consume his content for a week and understand the thoughts that are coming up with you and dig in. And I think the other thing that's blown my mind is the power of collective groups online. The power of Facebook groups has been insane. Honestly, like a year ago, if you told me this, I've been like, huh, what are Facebook groups? You know, like
are you even on Facebook? But there are people helping each other. You can ask questions. You don't have to read a book. You can just ask somebody, and you find people there on the same journey. And by the way, we have also a Facebook group, and you can also ask questions if you want. And also there for women these days, there's all these female leadership groups of Boss Mom or whatever female group. And would you recommend also other girls or women here to join one of these groups? And what the heck what are they doing in these groups?
Because I'm not in it anymore. And this is coming from someone, like I'm an engineer. I've been surrounded by in male dominated environments since I was a teenager, and I took, higher maths and physics courses at school. And in my early career, I was a man in a woman's body, to put it frank. Like I really felt like I had to behave like a man to succeed in this male dominated environment. And I think that reflecting back on those years, especially in like my early 20s, I missed out on so much real opportunity and connection with people that were worth it because I was so arrogant in my approach and very, I don't want to call myself sexist, but I was not, or anti-feminist, but I never wanted to put women first because I was so driven for equality. But in this drive for equality of always making sure that I was seen the same as a man, I think I was contributing to this male dominated system that and its sustenance really. So I think embracing, like for someone like me to embrace the power of helping another woman on her path, telling her she's great, giving her advice, taking some time away from me to help her, doesn't take away from me at all. It doesn't take away from my journey or my success or even my time. It actually just gains me the feeling of belonging, the feeling of being connected, and the other human being that I have connected to, and having someone have my back. Like what's happening in this women encouraging women movement, now almost only online, of course, has been so enlightening to me, honestly. And I can only say that I've wasted a lot of time trying to fight this purpose for the wrong reasons. So any woman who feels like she's been, and every woman will have felt this, whether she's an engineer or not, like every woman knows how it feels to be the only woman in a room and to not be taken seriously and be disrespected from people holding up old standards. I can only find there's going to be a women's group in every country that you're in. I'm in a group called Women Rock Switzerland, and it's almost 10,000 members, and this place is incredible. It's absolutely insane. Like every time I post something there, like I get just a shower of positivity back. It's incredibly empowering to know that there are people out there who just want to support and who are giving out, and there are a lot of people that still stay silent and will still support. And everybody's on their own path, but I can see this from somebody who wasted a lot of time. Women, go find your tribes.
Yes, they are also on Meetup. You can find some of these groups, or there's a lean in from the Facebook CEO. And just Google it and find it. And I think also I've seen some women that are in these groups and they gain a lot out of it. And also then I think men have also to find their groups and also to put more focus in like building relationships than gaining knowledge or having more in relationships than in objects. I would call it, and that's also I think an upgrade process for the man.
Murad, my partner, he's really jealous of these women's groups.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I want to find this positive place of encouragement too. And I think it's time, you know, like Mathias, you should grab them and, you know, start your worldwide men's encouragement group.
Yeah, like a female man group to encourage each other, where we just try to be nice to each other and help each other. Okay, but for now I have my podcast and can talk to other people that are nice. I can choose them, so it's fine.
Nice privilege.
We have to close. I will also put a link to your product and maybe also where people can reach out to you. And yeah, thank you very much for the interview, and see you next time. Hopefully, also in the Facebook group, maybe.
Such a pleasure. Thanks so much, Mathias.
Thanks.
Ciao.